I can't really make this. I don't know if I can make this bigger. Sure. And I can write game. Alright, so you'll get questions that either they'll look like one of two things. This, and then you'll have to solve for something where the variables will either all be on the same side or you'll need to get them on the same side. So like in this case, we're solving for z, and there's a z on this side, so I'm going to move z over, move this z term over, and then rewrite this. So 16z plus 29z minus pz equals negative v. And then I feel like it might have been this class, it may have not been, I don't remember. Because I'm trying to get z by itself, I was trying to move this out, but that didn't work. I see that there's a z in each of these, and kind of like if there were a z and then parentheses, I would multiply to everything, and that would give me a z and everything. I want to undo that and take that z out. So I'm going to say I'm like dividing each of these by z, but I'm not really. I'm taking it out of all of them. And because I'm kind of dividing, this is called factoring, but we'll do that later. What would be left is just 16 plus 29 minus p. Because I've taken out all of these z's. I can combine my like terms in here. I'm assuming 45 is what we get for that, from that. And then to get z completely by itself, I would divide both sides by what's inside here. So z would equal negative v over 45 minus p. Or the negative out the front. So there are different ways that one could have been answered. I think those are the only ways. So you make it something that looks like that, where you have to move the variable, get it on the same side, take it out of everything, and then go from there. Or you'll see something like this, where you're trying to solve for the variable, but it's inside parentheses. And you kind of have to do, this is like an extra step from the one before. Because for this one, I would need to distribute. And then I would need to get all the variables on one side, or the same variable on the same side, and then everything else on the other side. So I could move this 34 over and move this 17n over. So I have xn minus 34x on one side, both of my x's on the same side, and then my negative r and negative 17n on the other side. Then it would look similar to what we just did. I'm trying to get the x's by itself. There are x's in both of these, so I can take that out. And then exactly what we did before, divide both sides by that inside. So these are a little bit more complex than like things we were doing in class because of this process. But as you're doing this, if this did not make sense or you need more help or you're just not understanding this, come see me after school today or in the morning tomorrow. We can go through that together. Okay. Let us go through your quiz. So with this, I'm going to go through every single problem. If there's something you didn't understand, ask about it. If you don't have space on the front to fix any of this, turn it over, rewrite the problem, refix it. Notice any small mistakes you may have made, and then make sure you don't do that same thing on the test. And then same thing for big mistakes. If you need extra paper, there is some back there. So I'm going to go through each of these, talk about issues I saw, and things like that. So for number 1, you had to get n by itself. You should have divided both sides by negative 67. These would have canceled, and then you get n equals negative 14. Some of you subtracted, and some of you added because you were thinking it's a negative, so do the opposite. Neither of those things was what you were supposed to do because these are multiplying, so undo it by dividing. Questions on that first one? For number 2, get n by itself by subtracting 8 to the other side. Combine these, so negative 45 equals m, and that's all you had to do for that one. I didn't see too many issues with that one. Just make sure if you're moving things to the opposite side, you're using the inverse, not the same operation. For number 3, you should have combined these like terms, doing exactly what it says, 4n plus 4n to get 8n. And then I don't assume anything, so please make sure that you're showing me every step to include dividing these by 8 to get 1. Some of you moved 4n over and then divided both sides by 4, and then you ended up with like a negative 1, or moved it over by subtracting and then tried to divide both sides by something. It got weird. But just be careful with that. Double check your math in the calculator. I got some zeros here. It may have not been this class in general. Just be careful. I think 4 was probably where I saw the most issues. Remember that when you see fractions, you are cross-multiplying, multiplying this to everything here, not just one piece. Rewrite it if it helps you remember that you have to multiply it to everything, not just one piece. Distribute, that part I didn't really see issues with. Make sure you are double checking your math. Some of you did one part right, but not the other part, I think because you were thinking 11 instead of 10, so just double check your math. Then you have choices, move whatever, but show me that you're moving those withdrawal arrows because I don't know what that means. So a lot of you moved 10x over here by subtracting, and then move 44 over by adding. Some of you did the opposite, and that was okay too. So here, 11x minus 10x gives us 1x. Negative 50 plus 44 gives us negative 6. And that was our final answer there. X equals negative 6. Did anyone have questions on that one? Where you see something, you're not sure why it's wrong? In general, you guys did better on this first part than the second part. For this, number 5, you need to distribute the 2 to both. Be careful, again, that you're distributing to both, not just one. So then 14x minus 12. Be careful with your signs also. I saw some negatives where positive should have been and vice versa. And then again, you have a choice of what you want to move. I saw a lot of subtracting 4x and then adding 12. make sure if you're moving things to the opposite side, you're doing the opposite operation. This would give us 10x and 50. And then again, show that you divided to get 5. 5 was the correct answer for that one. Do you have any questions on that? Right. 6 was similar, but you had to distribute twice. The most common thing I saw here was multiplying the negative and the negative, and some of you still got a negative, and that messed everything else up. So be careful with your signs. And when you're combining like terms, do whatever it says, not the opposite. So 16k equals negative 60k plus 48 minus 35k plus 63. Another issue I saw was, as we were distributing, some of us were forgetting our variables, which meant we were adding and subtracting terms that shouldn't have been like terms, so be careful with that. Okay. Combining like terms on the same side, we have negative 60 minus 35. Do it exactly what it says. So that would give us a negative 95k. And then 48 plus 63 should have been 111. And then I did see this a couple times. If you move 16k over, that's not an incorrect step. You are allowed to do that. However, if you move 16k over here, this equals 0, and you still have to solve for k. You have to move it back. To avoid that, you could add 95k to the other side. To get 111k. Divide both sides by 111, and you would get 1. K equals 1 was the final answer for that one. Do we have any questions on that one? Yeah, there were a lot of issues in the second section. So if I don't answer what you did wrong, please ask about it and we'll go through that. So starting with 7, and there were a couple ways you could have done this. Some of you moved 2a over and then moved z back over so you didn't have to deal with the negative, and that was fine. Some of you moved 4 over, so I'll do it both ways and then I won't do it both ways for 8. So this is one of the ways, and then I'll show the other. So z plus 4 equals negative 2a. Divide everything by negative 2. So that these negative 2's cancel. We won't see negative numbers in the denominator, so you can put it in the numerator or off to the side. And these we could simplify. If you divided the entire side by negative 2, we can't simplify, but we would have to change the signs. So that would look something like and instead of doing this, you would either put the negative out front and put this in parentheses, or you would change the signs of everything, make this negative, make this negative. So this answer was fine, this answer was fine, or with the parentheses. If you did it the other way, where we added 2a to the other side, we have 2a plus z. Then you have to move z back. have 2a equals negative 4 minus z. And then divide either everything by 2 or individually by 2. So you could have a equals negative 4 minus z over 2, which is similar to what we had here. Or if you did it individually, you would have a equals negative 2 minus z over 2, which is the same thing we have here. So either way works, and there were multiple answers for that. I know that was a lot. Do we have questions on that one? Basically, if you're dividing by a negative, your signs have to change in some way, shape, or form. Right? 8 is similar, but I'm just going to do this one way. Move 3, so we have g minus 3. And I'm going to divide everything by negative 2 because nothing would simplify. But because I'm dividing by a negative, my signs would change. So this would become a negative g and a positive 3 all over 2. Some of you did divide it separately, which was fine. If you kept this as negative g over 2 and 3 over 2 or 1.5, if you just did negative g plus 1.5, the g is not dividing. So be careful there. Okay. For 9, to get x by itself, you just needed to move c to the other side by subtracting. Some of you were moving d and r, but we didn't need to do that for this one. Just move c to the other side. It gets rid of this c on this side. So x equals d minus r minus c. Or if you put it in alphabetic order, x equals negative c plus d minus r. Either of those was fine. Do we have questions on that one? 10, there were 2 different ways you could do that. Similar to up here, you could either move c and then divide everything by negative 1, or move d and r and then get rid of x. Either way would work. So if we got rid of c, we would subtract it to the other side. The c's would cancel. Some of you were forgetting that this was still negative x though. Bring down all of your signs. And then x isn't by itself, so we still got to get rid of this negative. Remember that this is negative 1. You can divide everything by negative 1, but you have to simplify. All your signs are going to change because you're dividing by a negative. So this would become a negative d, a negative r, and a positive c. And that should have been your answer. Anyone need or want to see it done the other way? (11) To get a by itself, you needed to get rid of c. You would have divided both sides by c to do that. So these c's would have gone away, and then a equals d minus r over c. Questions on that one? (12) We needed to get a by itself, so if we get rid of m by adding it to the other side, it would do that. N plus p plus m, or if you put it in alphabetic order, a equals m plus n plus p. Either or. Make sure you are boxing in your answer at the end so I know that is your final answer. Do we have questions on any of this? For your test, I need everyone's phones in a calculator pocket. Not in your book bags, not on you, in a calculator pocket, or you will not get a test.